Madam President, I rise today profoundly humbled by the people of California for placing their trust in me to serve and represent them for a full term in the United States Senate. It's a tremendous honor to return to this body, and I also recognize that it is also a tremendous responsibility. To the people of California, thank you. And please know that I will work hard every single day to uphold that trust. And to my colleagues who have helped me hit the ground running since my first day in the Senate 2 years ago, thank you. And that includes California's senior Senator, Dianne Feinstein, who has served the state of California for over 3 decades as a trailblazing public servant and a model for principled leadership, whom I've been honored to serve alongside. And I'll always be thankful for my parents, Santos and Lupe Padilla, for all they did for my brother, my sister, and me growing up. And of course, I could not be here without the love and support, and often the patience and understanding of my wife, Angela, and our 3 boys, Roman, Alex, and Diego. Now, as the first Latino elected to represent California in our state's history, it's not lost on me what this moment means for millions of people back home. I understand that my family's story is a reflection of what so many other hardworking families have experienced. As I've shared many times before, my parents immigrated from Mexico. They came to the United States in search of a better life. For 40 years, my dad worked as a short-order cook, and my mom cleaned houses as they raised the 3 of us in the proud working-class community of Pacoima, California, in the San Fernando Valley. I'm proud of our family's journey, but it wasn't without our share of challenges. I remember what it looked like to see our neighborhood neglected, navigating everything from buckled sidewalks to drug dealers as we walked to and from school. I remember what it was like for our family to live paycheck to paycheck. My mom at times bartering the mechanic, offering some of her homemade tacos for just a little bit more time to pay the bill. And when it came time to figure out how I was going to pay for college, I remember filling out the financial aid forms and realizing that tuition alone at MIT was a larger amount than my dad's W-2. But it's because of their hard work and sacrifices that I stand here today. The very idea that a first-generation son of a short-order cook and a housekeeper is now serving in the United States Senate is proof of the American dream. But that dream has never been about passive participation. It's made possible by those who work for it and by those willing to defend it and expand it. It's about hopeful goals for a better future and the ambition to work towards them. It's about the drive to get up each morning before the sun rises, to put on a white apron and push through tired eyes and a sore back because you know that someday your kids can have it better. And if my parents are my inspiration for being here, then my children are my motivation for fighting to keep the dream alive. Madam President, I'm one of the few members of this body blessed to still have young kids at home. So when we talk about the future of our country or the future of our planet, it is not in the abstract. I think of Roman, Alex, and Diego and their generation. They are the generation who will carry on these monumental tasks and fight for equality and opportunity in the future. So colleagues, we have to be focused on doing the work today to make sure the American dream is alive for them tomorrow. So I ask, who's willing to defend the dream? And what are we willing to do to defend it? ¿Quién está dispuesto a defender el sueño americano? Hoy me dirijo a ustedes como el primer latino elegido para representar a California en el Senado. Sí, es un sueño realizado porque la historia de mi familia es un reflejo de lo que muchas familias trabajadoras han vivido en este país. Mis padres, Santos y Lupe Padilla, emigraron de México en los años 60. Por 40 años, mi padre trabajó como cocinero y mi madre limpiando casas. Gracias a sus sacrificios, yo estoy aquí. Y su lucha sigue siendo mi inspiración. Y ahora nos toca defender el sueño americano para las generaciones que vienen. Cuando hablamos sobre el futuro de nuestro país o sobre el futuro de nuestro planeta, pienso en mis hijos, Román, Alex y Diego. Ellos son mi motivación para seguir trabajando por un futuro mejor y para seguir defendiendo el sueño americano. You know, over my first 2 years in the Senate, we've made real progress to keep the dream alive for millions of Americans. From giving families the extra support they needed to get through a once-in-a-century pandemic, to lowering healthcare costs, to passing the largest investment in history to confront the climate crisis. But we can't stop now. American prosperity over the next 6 years, the survival of the American dream, means keeping up the fight to level the playing field. And that starts with addressing some of the most urgent threats standing in the way of that dream. You know, just last month, over the course of 3 days, my home state experienced 3 back-to-back mass shootings that claimed the lives of 19 Californians. I was returning home from visiting a victims resource center in Monterey Park, California, when I received word of the 2 additional shootings in Half Moon Bay and in Oakland. Americans are sick and tired of the Republican excuses and the gun lobby rhetoric. No one can deny that we have a gun violence problem in America. When gun violence is the leading cause of death for children, how can we say they have the opportunity to achieve their dreams? So I refuse to grow numb to the epidemic of gun violence. And I still have hope that we can prevent future tragedies with common sense policies like universal background checks and an assault weapons ban that's been proven to save lives. Now, this winter, California also experienced a relentless stream of severe weather, rainstorms, flooding, and mudslides that's caused over $1 billion in damage. I welcome President Biden and Vice President Harris to survey storm damage in California. And they've been exemplary partners both in disaster response as well as in our efforts to rebuild our communities. But the progress to rebuild is ongoing, and we'll need to work together to get the impacted areas the resources they need. And Madam President, let me be clear that despite the record rainfall that dominated the news last month, California and our fellow Western states are still suffering from a crippling drought. Now, Californians know all too well that natural disasters and extreme weather whiplash have become the new normal in the 21st century. Each year we brace for increasingly frequent and devastating wildfires, catastrophic flooding and mudslides, and a searing drought. They all point to one thing: the need for climate action. Our very survival depends on our ability to combat the climate crisis. We must continue to step up our efforts to protect the planet. Yes, that means eliminating carbon pollution and transitioning to a clean energy economy. It also means fighting for clean air and water, particularly for the more vulnerable communities disproportionately impacted by environmental pollution. And it means protecting and managing our federal lands and waterways. And at times, that means making difficult and innovative decisions to preserve our resources and protect our communities. For Western states that rely on the Colorado River, that means coming together to find consensus on a water agreement that prevents disaster and preserves the human right to water. We must also reform our outdated immigration system and do so in a way that better reflects our values. That means creating a pathway to citizenship for the hundreds of thousands of dreamers who live in daily fear of deportation from the only home they've ever known. And for all the essential workers who kept us safe and our economy going throughout the pandemic. It means making sorely needed updates to our legal migration system, like addressing the crippling visa backlogs that keep families apart and deny our economy the workforce that it needs. And it means ensuring that individuals and families who are fleeing horrific conditions in their home countries and seeking asylum in the United States are treated humanely and provided due process. Our nation is also confronting a serious mental health crisis. Now, this crisis existed well before COVID, but we saw the pandemic exacerbate the crisis. Demand for healthcare is way up, while we have an increasing shortage of healthcare professionals available. And this is also a critical opportunity to fundamentally end the stigma surrounding mental health. You know, if a family member or a friend breaks their arm or leg, we don't judge them for going to the hospital to seek help. Nobody looks down on somebody for going to the dentist for regular checkups. We need to treat mental health the same way. And finally, at a time of rising nationalism around the world, we must secure the foundations of democracy. For those who say that legislation to protect the sacred right to vote in America is too partisan, they're only right in the sense that attacks on our right to vote are partisan. We must denounce Republican candidates across the country who choose to divide the American people with lies and conspiracy theories. You know, as long as Republican-led state legislatures work to pass voter suppression laws across the nation, or election deniers put our election workers in danger, we have more work to do. And as long as millions of eligible Americans have yet to exercise their right to vote, including the roughly 80 million who did not vote or were unable to vote in an otherwise record-setting 2020 election, we have more work to do. And that work includes bolstering our cybersecurity efforts, not just to secure the infrastructure of elections, but to combat disinformation from bad faith actors. Now, I'm not naive about the challenges ahead. After 2 years of historic achievements, an extreme wing of Republicans now hold progress in the House of Representatives hostage. This group has shown that they'd rather undermine our democracy than defend it. They'd rather risk a first-ever default by the federal government than serve the interests of the American people. At stake for millions of Americans are programs that they've spent decades paying into, like Medicare and Social Security, American institutions that define how we take care of one another and how we provide dignity for seniors. And they've set the crosshairs on a woman's right to make her own decisions about her own body. So we have a tall task ahead of us. But to the people of California, please know that I didn't seek out this office because I thought it'd be easy. I did so because the issues are too important. And I'm ready. I'm ready for the difficult fights ahead. Because today we have a responsibility to write the next chapter of American progress into history, to join so many who came before us, who made the American dream possible. When huddled masses came to our shores with the belief in a better future, immigrants put in the work to build our country and our economy and to make the dream a reality. When we celebrate America as the land of freedom and equality, we recognize generations of civil rights activists who risked everything for the right to vote and to expand the dream to groups often denied it. And when a man from Jalisco and a woman from Chihuahua immigrate to Los Angeles in search of a better life, it was them, Santos and Lupe Padilla, who toiled and sacrificed to secure the dream for their children. They are the American story. They are the American dream. Madam President, in closing, I just want to share that over the last 2 years, countless people have asked me if becoming a United States Senator is a dream come true. My honest answer is no. You see, for me, when I was a kid growing up, I never dreamt that anything like this was possible. But now that I'm here, I promise I will not take a single day for granted. And I'll never stop fighting to keep the dream alive for future generations. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor.